So my pronoun is she, her, and I'll start my speech now. What exactly is an art that is deemed to be culturally and historically significant, and why public access to this art is extremely important in today's society? Our team successfully portrayed this since we're the only side who cares for the whole society and reduce the possibilities of inequalities when it comes to art. So before we move on to our responses and some substantive arguments, let's come to a clarification. Because both side on our side we have explained really clearly on what is considered as art, which is culturally or historically significant. Because in the beginning, if like common sense and if you understand this, then you may think that anything is considered art, from your piece of doodles to anything. But when it comes to something that is deemed to be culturally or historically significant, this is a totally different chapter. Because there's a difference between art that receive criticism, nobody understands, and art that is appreciated and understood by the public. Because the example of the famous banana tape art, right? It may look funny and old, but not many people might fully understand the artist's intentions. But when an art is considered to be culturally significant and important to an entire nation, it is appreciated and understood by the majority of the public. This is important for the government to protect it and be accessible to for people to see physically. Because OO might say that people can still view this online and it is still accessible to them. This is wrong. So it's not a matter of bidding and who gets what, but about unity, and the nation is able to cherish the art together. So let's come to the responses. OO's entire case is on the fact of risk. They say there'll be risk. What if it's robbed? What if people can't really see the art in person and they can still see it if there's private ownership? Private ownership, they say, doesn't mean it is always kept private. True, it can be posted online, but this means this art is viewed as less important since anyone can buy it, anyone can use it, and bid for it. Harmful since this is no longer seen as something significant and valuable, because OOV make it seem like this is unique, but I can still buy it with my money. Take example of the original Mona Lisa. The fact that no one has the right to buy it make it so special, since it shows how important this is to the public. And anyone can see it, anyone can physically see it from the museum, but no one actually has private ownership over this piece of art. And this is what makes it so special, because by then people think that this is special and nobody actually has the right to own it. Like, it is not just a market where anyone and anything can be bought off simply with money. And they also mentioned a point on how this is censorship and investment and reduce the burdens of fun. This is harmful since OO creates this into an auction when it is like a market and the richest will own the piece, basically. And this will create even more inequality, which we will happen to explain even further in our substantive argument. So overall, we believe that OO's case completely fails because they do not understand the point of this motion. When an art is seen as culturally or historically significant, it basically means that this art is viewed as something special to the entire public. And if you happen to privately own this, there's two reasons. Number one, you have a lot of relationship with like the government, or number two, you are rich, right? So if you're able to own a piece of art which is culturally or historically significant to the entire nation, those are basically two main reasons why you're able to do so. And this creates further inequality, which will now come to our main substantive argument, which is on how the argument here is making art publicly owned is a way to preserve culture and prevent damage and prevent possible cultural exploitation. Because cultural exploitation happens both in the present and in the past, which has huge impact on the people and the way people connect through art. Because the mechanism here is that in the past, during like colonial periods and the power, the ones with power and the ones with the power to overtake and is able to overthrow an entire government or country has the possibility to even stole or bought valuable cultural artifacts under a lot of circumstances. This can be unethical, this can be illegal, and this can be forceful. And these artifacts were mostly taken from temples, tombs, some sacred spaces, or even directly from people who originally authorized this art in the first place. And many of these pieces were sold to private collectors, who basically profit from these art. So what it means is that people can easily buy this off simply because they think this is very culturally significant and this is prioritized and this is appreciated by the entire public. And simply when people buy this art, it's not that they actually appreciate this, it's because they want to make an investment, just like what Owo was saying on how this creates further investment for the people who gets the freedom to privately own this simply because they have money. And secondly, how this will even further on cultural inequality, because a prohibition will just levels the playing field. Cultural wealth should not actually depend on economic wealth, because this means that only the ultra rich can afford to buy this art, and the poorer communities never get to actually see or engage with their own national symbols if they don't actually visit elite spaces, or if they don't have access to the internet to actually catch up with what is the symbol of the internet right now. And this actually further reinforces inequality and cultural alienation. And why is this so bad? Simple. Because as we explained before, this creates a space where people cannot get access to art. And art is should be accessible to everyone, especially in art that is considered as culturally or historically significant. Because even though the Mona Lisa, it is a public domain, meaning that anyone can actually recreate this, anyone can use this for advertisement without like patent, or they don't need to get permission. But the original piece will never get stolen or will never get changed because the security is really high. And when the art it is culturally significant or or like historically significant, then the government has to take immense steps to be able to reduce the problem of like theft or the problem of thieves in the first place. So we don't think this is like really a problem when it comes to the fact that this is like a public domain and it is publicly owned and no one gets the right to do so. The fact that you're private own this make it seems like a market where anything can be bought off, and this creates even further risk when the art don't actually have meaning anymore, because if you're rich you can easily buy this off. Very proud to propose.